Good morning. This is Stan in Gainesville, Florida, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Hi, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas, and you're about to experience Light Talk.
And this is David in beautiful Belmont Shore in Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers. Well, what an exciting day we have for you today. We have an exciting guest with us on Light Talk Central. Al Crawford has just been knighted as one of the Knights of Illumination at this year's LDI conference. And we have today on our show...
Al Crawford!
Boy, that was fast. As soon as he got off the plane, he came over here to Light Talk Central.
No, we've been working on this for like a year.
Yeah, but we got to make it sound like it was like really cool. Like it just happened. But anyway, so Stan, why don't you give us a brief bio of Al's incredible career?
It's not a brief bio on Al, okay? So let's just be honest. This guy is amazing. He's been doing this for a long time, and I'm going to do my best to read this bio. So just sit back and take a listen to what this amazing artist has done. Al has been the lighting director of the world-renowned Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater since 1998. Now in his 20th season with the famed dance company, he has produced the lighting for Ailey in virtually every major theater, performing arts center, and opera house on the planet, having toured to 48 states and over 60 countries, including historically significant performances in Russia, China, and South Africa. Al has had the opportunity to work directly with many important choreographers in the dance world, including, of course, Judith Jamieson, Robert Battle, Garth Fagan, Matthew Rushing, Ron Brown, George Faison, Mark Dendy, Trey McIntyre, Christopher Huggins, Hope Boykin, Osnel Delgado, Jean Guy Santos, and many others. He has designed 18 new works for the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater and 12 for Ailey 2. Additionally, he has been responsible for maintaining the lighting for the significant Ailey Repertory, designed by many of the top lighting designers in the industry. A huge believer, just like me, in cross-genre design, Al founded Arc3 Design, a lighting design group dedicated to merging his theatrical aesthetic into all areas of art, architecture, dance, live music, theater, broadcast, and event production. Arc3 employs a team of creative, talented designers and technical artists that support the creation and implementation of new projects worldwide. Arc3 Design creates the lighting for over 100 projects a year. Recently, the current projects include architectural installations at New York's Central Synagogue, new ballets for Alvin Ailey's American Dance Theater, Haiti's Ica Dance, and Cuba's Malpaso Dance Company, multiple state dinners for the White House, Cedar Point's multi-million-dollar light show Luminosity, a variety of shows for the Holland America Cruise Lines, Madison Square Garden, sports entertainment, and brands for Spotify, Google, Samsung, Intel, Dom Perignon, and Lamborghini. That's the car I want to drive. Al is the guest faculty member of the University of North Carolina School of the Arts and was recently an adjunct faculty member at the University of Connecticut School of Fine Arts. He also serves as a selection committee member for the Gilbert Hemsley Lighting Internship Program at Lincoln Center, most likely along with Mark Stanley. He has had the opportunity to speak to students at universities around the country at the United States Institute for Theater Technology, USITT, Live Design International, LDI, and the Stagecraft Institute of Las Vegas. Al was recently a keynote speaker at the ETCQ conference in Madison, Wisconsin, where I was fortunate enough and honored to be able to hear him speak at that event. Al, of course, is also a member of United Scenic Artists, Local 829, and the International Alliance for Theatrical Stage Employees, Local 635. And he is a proud graduate of the North Carolina School of the Arts with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. Al, I'm tired.
I'm exhausted too.
I bet you are.
I might need a nap.
So Al, isn't the sword and the stone enough? I mean, really, I mean,
I think it is time to rewrite the bio and just have it a photo of the sword, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, because your first bio was way too short. This is much more, exhaustive and honors your work.
So, Al, tell us about this Knights of Illumination Award. What's the skinny on that?
The skinny. Let me tell you, one of the things I think about the Knights of Illumination Award when I first heard about it was, there wasn't really anything like it in the United States. As lighting designers, sure, there are a number of awards that are really focused on theater or regional projects, etc. But they tend to be fairly specific. Obviously, the Tony for lighting design of a musical and the Tony for lighting design of a play and the Obie for theatrical work is all incredible honors. But we haven't really had a award that has weight that really speaks to a broad range of lighting design for a broad range of genres and projects and experiences. So when I heard that it was coming to the United States, I thought, well, this is really a wonderful thing, because in many ways it's for us, by us. And the fact, that I actually won this thing, I was, blown away and honored beyond comprehension, mostly because everyone I was nominated with these are the people that I grew up aspiring to. These are the people that I would come to New York and sit in the back row, with a $20 ticket and dream about possibly having a career someday like them. And to be nominated alone was an incredible honor, and to win was just, beyond comprehension. So I am still on a high from Vegas this past weekend for sure.
You said it came to the United States. Did it exist somewhere else before?
It did. The Night of Illumination Awards is, I believe, in its 13th year in London. So it's been an established award that, in a similar way, awards sponsored by a variety of manufacturers and companies, but it's primarily been for British and European lighting designers.
Interesting. Cool.
That's why they call it the Knights of Illumination, Stan.
I get that, but I guess I wasn't plugged into that it was existing that long.
Okay, understand something, Al, that we're extremely jealous. You've got three, guys who have been hacks all their lives, basically. No. So, we didn't even get the vote. I mean, they didn't even want to hear from us. I mean, that's the truth. But anyway, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
It's a huge honor. And a good friend of ours, Ann Militello, I know she wields the sword as well,
yes,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is she a sword wielder? Yeah. You guys actually have like weekend festivals where you do like, jousting and things like that?
I hope someone calls me. I'd love to get the outfit. I think that would be a lot of fun.
He needs some. What do you call those things? The joust? And what do you call the long thing the knights carry? I don't know.
It's the big pointed stick.
Yeah, I actually, the moment in which I was honored beyond belief, no matter what. But I was presented the sword by Fred Foster because my particular award was sponsored by ETC, and to have him, of all people, hand it to me, which was amazing. But then we had a little bit of like trying to figure out how he was going to hand it to me. The thing is 5 feet tall, right? So there was a moment in which I thought I might be actually taking Fred out with this thing in front of everybody, right? So
how much does it weigh?
Oh, it weighs a lot.
20 pounds?
It's more.
Like that?
It's literally a sword made in Italy. By a steel swordsmith, So this is no plastic thing. It is the real deal, as they say. So.
Is it like the Stanley Cup where there's only one, you got to present it to the next person, or can you put it on your salad table?
Right.
Like
so you could do some damage with that thing, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, for sure. I heard a rumor that Fred actually cut his birthday cake with it recently.
So Al, was this recognizing a body of work or a specific project you worked on?
This was for a specific project, a project called Victoria, which was a new work by Gustavo Ramirez Sazano, a Spanish choreographer that came to Ailey, and he did this new work last year, and I had the great honor of designing it with him. So nice. It was a great success from a internal Ailey perspective. We thought it was one of those pieces that visually was really hit the mark, and it seemed like a bunch of other people enjoyed it, so it was an honor to be nominated for it.
Well, congratulations!
That's really great.
And speaking of Alvin Ailey, you are known for your amazing work with that company for over 20 years or something like that. How did you get started with them?
Well, I grew up as a dancer, singer, musician, high school kid who did everything. I was just a sort of kid of the theater, kid of the arts. And I went to Interlochen up in northern Michigan for theater and dance and visual art. And while I was there, I kind of had a number of teachers that really wanted me to hone in. And so I decided, to kind of explore some other things. And they wanted me to take a lighting class. And I thought, okay, well, that seems interesting, but, I'm not really sure. And then what I realized very quickly was I could be involved in all of these things and not give them up. I could still do dance and opera and visual art. And it became this sort of synergy of all those things. Shortly thereafter, I saw the Ailey 2 company come through Interlaken as a performance, and I thought, wow, even the Ailey 2 company, the performance, the dance, the light, the music, it just had an aesthetic that literally threw me on my back. So I started going down the rabbit hole. I started trying to learn everything I could about Alvin Ailey, what it was about, the history of the man himself, about their repertory and what the lighting history was. And then after high school, I went to North Carolina School of the Arts. And during that time, my teacher there, Norman Coates, gave me the great opportunity to light a lot of dance. And during that time, I went and saw Ailey a lot because I became kind of a fanboy. And literally, when I graduated, I went and worked for every ex-Ailey lighting director I could find. So it became a very strategic, sort of plan to learn from them and gain from them and try to build this network. So by the time I had the opportunity to apply for a job as one of the lighting directors, as the assistant director, I knew everybody, which was great. And that made it a much easier transition because I didn't have to convince anybody that I had the passion for the company or wanted the job. It was about, really once I got it, trying not to screw it up,
Right. It sounds like you made your own luck. You made your own.
I always say to young designers when they come to New York or they transition from their educational careers to professional careers, everyone says right time, right place. You have to put yourself in the right place, right? You can't sit at home and have the right time, right place thing happen. That's, for me, I think was a really important thing is I got out there, I was present, I was around and did things, I was active and, it came. So
yeah, you can't be quiet in this business.
No.
And you can't remove yourself socially. Something we all tell our students about. And, and being proactive like you are, man, that is the key. It's a total key.
Yep. You want to talk about what do people do in their summers? What do they do after graduation? How do they transition? Internships, mentorships. Maybe you can tell our listeners some of the most useful advice when thinking about design for dance, new works, mounting classics, and what people can do to prepare themselves.
Absolutely. One of the things of course, being interested in Alvin Ailey, the biggest advice I was given by a number of designers very early on was find yourself comfortable with repertory. And repertory is not one of those things that's easily taught in a university training program. You have to have lots of shows happening at the same time for you to really understand what repertory is. And so when I first came to New York, I met Jeff Harris, who's an amazing lighting designer, through my contacts of trying to work for, again, every Ailey LD that I could. And Jeff hired me at Glimmerglass Opera Company as a lighting supervisor. And there I learned about how to take 4 to 6 operas and rotate through them, and the paperwork process, and the clarity of information, and being able to take complex lighting design ideas and how to break them down and figure out how to remount them or reinvent them and support the lighting designers in a way that I could actually realistically recreate their designs.
Maybe for some of our younger listeners, Al, tell them what a repertory means.
Sure. Yeah, repertory is doing lots of things all on the same stage, right? So a repertory dance company like Alvin Ailey, for example, this coming New York season, we're doing 27 ballets in repertory during a 5-week season. That is basically 27 acts, all that have their own lighting needs, their own specialty lighting needs, their own lighting designers, their own side color, their own scenery, their own music, their own costumes, their own floors sometimes, and all of those pieces have to be able to mix. So we don't have a program A, which is for certain ballets, and program B is another certain. Any of those 27 could be put together in different combinations of 3 or 4 pieces in a night. So we have to learn how to build the operational strategy to be able to get from ballet A to ballet G to ballet F. And while we're doing it, we're thinking about what's coming 2 days from now and what can I do right now to save myself 30 seconds down the line, right? So it's actually become it's a really fun game, actually, for our team and I to find those efficiencies while still having the curtain go out and have it look, as perfect and beautiful
it's
as
easy.
it was, so it feels effortless, right? And that our audiences don't, they don't see any of that. But our goal is for them to be, the ballets to be represented the way they were as the lighting designers left them, right? So we have over 200 lighting designers represented in the Ailey Rep.
Is that so? Wow.
So-
I go back a ways. Wow.
Yeah. So just managing the relationships is a full-time job. Forget the number of specials and channels and all those things. So.
I have a question, sort of a follow-up to that, because I'm sure that some of these designers are not with us anymore. How do you handle recreating the style of the design with new technology? Because I'm sure that you guys don't have a bunch of Altman Licos and a bunch of Fresnels there. I'm sure technology has changed your rig quite a bit. So how do you handle that and still be faithful to their design?
It's a wonderful question, and it's actually one of the things I love to talk about. So you might be surprised. We have not just jumped on the board of every piece of new technology. We are fairly conservative when it comes to transitioning for that very reason. We have so much legacy work. We have so many pieces that were born in the 60s and the late 50s and the 70s, and that work by the masters of Chenault Spence.
I was going to mention Chenault
Yes,
Spence.
absolutely.
Right.
Nick Cernovich.
Clark Thornton, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of amazing work that was created during those years that is still being performed or even coming back into the repertory after not being in the rep for 25, 30 years. And so part of that process is having studied all of this work, right? Even ballets that we're not doing, trying to build an understanding of the work and watch the videos and talk to the dancers and the choreographers and all those things. But then, one of the things that has made it fairly easy for that work to come back accurately is institutional memory. So we've had very few, the company's 60 years old. I've been there 20 years.
Wow,
So
60 years.
So
Wow.
just look at just the math alone. There's only been about 6 lighting directors that have been there for significant amounts of time. And that has helped the institutional memory to stay very tight. Right, so we've all been able to talk. We've all been able to share the paperwork as the transition between those different lighting directors over the decades has been really tight. So those kinds of conversations have helped. But also, again, being very smart about the technology. Our plot is still 85% conventional tungsten source 4s with scrollers and gel and dimmers, right? And so certainly, do we have some technology? Absolutely. We've got some, we have some Martin Vipers. We've got, of course, really, really robust front-end control, ETC EOS and TI, front-end infrastructure, which is amazing to keep us organized. But from a pure nuts and bolts perspective, it is a fairly traditional light plot. And so that's helped a lot of that older legacy work still feel very true, because it is, it's not Berkey Fresnels, but it's still tungsten fire with subtractive gel, right?
Yeah,
And,
so what's going to happen when they outlaw tungsten?
yeah, I'm in trouble. Hopefully I'm laying in a boat somewhere.
Take some spectroscopy measurements now, Al. I'm serious.
Oh, no,
Of those ballets, with those gels at those levels, and get that data so that you can recreate as close as possible. I want to tell you that back in the late 80s, I was at Production Arts, who provided those first touring systems for Ailey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back with Steve Terry and the moving towers with the side light. That was all, at the time was so unique to be able to provide the kind of art that company was doing at the time. It's really amazing.
Absolutely. The company has had some long-term relationships with different lighting providers. Production Arts and Alvin Ailey, go way back when they both went through periods where they needed each other. Where
yes, absolutely.
There was a time where, as I understand it, Alvin Ailey was one of Production Arts' own long-term cornerstone clients, and at one point, we really needed the love of Production Arts as well. So I know that it goes way back. We now have obviously continued relationships with a number of other vendors and things. Four Wall's been providing our lighting for 13 years now. But those kind of relationships are extremely important to how we function. I will say, just going back to the measurement conversation for a quick moment about measuring colors. Absolutely, I agree. There's a lot of work that can be done to be able to get some of that kind of data. But honestly, the way I like for this work to transition is through a bit more emotional context, right?
Sure.
I love the conversations with Chenault Spence.
Is he still around?
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you. Is he? Who are some of the senior, the senior members of those teams who we still have with us? Can you name them for us?
I will. Nick Cernovich just passed away, just like 3 weeks ago, in his late 80s, early 90s. Chenault Spence, still with us and designing, and as smart as you can get. Like he's still rocking and rolling. Great guy. Tim Hunter, lighting designer, also taught at the University of Connecticut for a number of years in the digital program there. Amazing lighting designer. Did so many pieces with Alvin himself in the 80s. Dan Benitsky came after Tim, and then Brenda Gray, and then ultimately me. So for me, it's one of those things that the thing I love about Ailey is it will continue, right? So, that the next generation of dancers and crew and lighting directors and technology, it's, I'm really excited to see 30 years from now, how the company continues to flourish,
It's an American brand that you guys have created.
It's iconic.
It's
It
iconic.
really is.
Absolutely.
Talking about mounting classics and new works, it's this hybrid of older technology and newer technology, and this transition of going into thinking about LEDs and sort of a new approach about theatrical lighting. We are obviously using new technology because of our control approach and moving lights, etc. But we're being very careful about how we embrace the LED revolution, mostly because it's moving so fast, and there's so many variables in terms of thinking about how ballets that are created today will be remounted 30 years from now.
Yeah.
And we're figuring all that out. And some close colleagues of mine, including Clifton Taylor and I, have had extremely, detailed and long conversations about this, about how dance is, really transitioning in that way. But for us is, how do we write down and quantify a color when a designer makes it in a way that it's going to be it's going to have some context 30 years from now. Now, when I open a folder from 1965 and I look at that paperwork and I see channel 67, I know that channel 67 is a center red pool. And I know that that red is a certain color because I know what the Geltran color was, and then I know ultimately what the Lee color was, right? So I can make that association. I understand what tungsten, have a sense of what that tungsten looked like in a Geltran. I have a sense of what it looked like in a Lico. But as soon as you then transition into an LED, how is that information expressed? When I open those envelopes from the 60s, I've talked about it in other conversations about this. I'm looking for love notes. I'm looking for designers to write little things in their folders that say, this was blood red, or this was midnight blue, or this was like, I'm looking for poetry. And so
the essence of love.
That's right.
That's an old Gilbert Hemsley description.
That's exactly right. And so, I'm trying to hold on to the sort of beauty and poetry of light. And, I love going to LDI and seeing all the tools and toys, and don't get me wrong, it's all amazing stuff. But, what I am trying to hold on to is that the reason I became a lighting designer is because there's so much incredible emotional context in this art form that we all do and love, and try not to get caught into, I can do this because I can, right?
Yeah. That's always the balance. It's like Max Keller talked about in his book, or Dieter Dorn, about the balance of technology and art. and trying to keep people in this emotional plane and not be distracted by technology, just using technology as a tool. That's really the tricky part, isn't it?
Totally.
Let me throw this out there. I had the honor of trying to duplicate this David Hockney installation at the Smithsonian 2 years ago. And we did a lot of science, and we did a lot of measuring, and we did a lot of which fixture was going to color match incandescent VL5s on a multicolored surface. And at the end of the day, we did all of that. And then when we put what the science told us should be accurate on the work, it was not right. Okay,
isn't that always the case?
So we ultimately used our eye and our hearts to make it look like we thought Mr. Hockney did when he did it the first time.
Yeah,
you would have saved a lot of time and money had you gone for that the first.
Well,
place.
but I think there was something very educational about.
Sure.
We had ETC we sent ETC spectroscopy data, and they sent us for their fixtures. And then they made a custom color palette. So it was exactly what the meter said in the color space. And then when we put it on the subject, because the subject is multicolored, we thought that's not quite right.
Yeah.
So we used our eyes. So it was a combination of both.
Yep.
But there was it's a lot about honoring the work of what those people did and trying to be respectful of it and to bring it back in a way that has the feeling that you're talking about,
Yeah.
Al.
And don't get me wrong, when things come back from the 60s and 70s, we are looking at it with a fresh set of eyes. It's a new audience now.
Yes,
that's right.
Exactly.
Right?
And we were brighter than the original, but
Yeah.
the curators liked it. But
Yeah.
it still had the right.
That's great.
Yeah, that's interesting. You really have to take in consideration the zeitgeist of the present audience and what their expectations are. When they watch TV, nowadays they see lighting, that is completely different from the 60s. And same thing, obviously, in theater, Broadway. So their expectations are different. But then again, I did some work at the Kirov in St. Petersburg, and they have a huge repertoire too. Unfortunately, they have the original lights in there.
Yeah. were you at the Mariinsky?
Yeah, at the Mariinsky.
Yeah, I love that theater.
Yeah. Well, no, it is a great theater as long as nobody lights a match.
Right.
It's really crazy. But no, I think it's amazing that you do this. I mean, it takes such talent and sensitivity to be able to do this. Right. We were talking about it at our show in LDI about recreating shows when we were assistants and keeping the style of the original designer, and how to do that when you go from theater to theater. Here, you're working across decades.
We're as much lighting directors as we are archivists.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, we really do try to think about our department in that way. That it's it's very different than just we're focusing the lights and we're getting the show up. Like the archival process and the how we bring things back to life are just really a huge part of what we do. So.
Well, that's amazing, Al. Can you tell us a little bit about your company, Arc3 Design?
Absolutely. Arc3 Design was established about 15 years ago. It's ultimately came out of a desire to take what I had been doing at Alvin Ailey for, at the time, about 5 years, and really expand on that aesthetic and expand on that experience. I had some life choices to make early on. Do I make a place like Alvin Ailey my home, and I do this for the unforeseeable future, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, no idea at the time what that was going to entail. But for me, after about 5 years of just doing dance, even though it was Alvin Ailey and touring the world and all these things, I had a drive and I had a hunger to do some other things and some other projects. So I established Arc3, just like any young lighting designer does. It's a business card and a dream, right? Like there's no real company, there's no insurance, there's nothing, right? So
well, there is for me, but it grew.
Yeah, but we're not licensed, Stan.
I'm not licensed. That's true.
So I started doing some special event work and some music concert work at a few local companies in and around New York, and I started building a clientele of event producers, directors, choreographers, non-traditional kind of project producers themed entertainment projects, et cetera. So I started expanding very quickly on these kinds of things. But at the same time, I didn't want to leave Ailey, right? I wanted to continue to travel the world and create all this new work. It was my home. So just like any company, as it grows, I hired an assistant, and then I needed another one because I had to go on tour, right? And suddenly I had all these clients and these projects that I needed to continue, and I didn't want to leave Ailey. So how do I do that? I had to hire another person, and suddenly I had a payroll, so I needed somebody to do the payroll and insurance,
right.
and
Now you're
contracts
responsible for their
and
mortgage.
all that, right? So
Now you have the guilt. You got the guilt.
There's definitely guilt involved, But over time it grew, and my clientele and kinds of projects grew, and it's become a really great kind of relationship and dialogue between my work at Ailey and ARC3's projects. So, for me now, I have a number of what I call permalancers that stick around me more often than not, and we work on lots of annual projects. So that's one of the things that I found, just kind of talking with young people about building a company or a brand when it comes to lighting, is, I got very lucky that these projects that I was getting, they were going to do them every year. Right? It was a gala. It was a birthday party, right? It was things that are annual, these kinds of projects that don't just happen once. Once you do them, great.
Built a sustainable business.
Right. I could forecast. I could look and see, okay, what was going to happen in September because of the things that I was fairly sure were going to come back around, right?
Right. That's nice.
And some of those projects that when I started are still annual projects that we do today. And so those clients, really helped me get onto my feet, specifically the New Jersey Performing Arts Center in Newark. I've had a relationship with them for close to 2 decades, and still to this day do a lot of their concerts and events and galas and things. So, ARC3 for me, still to today is really developing the kinds of projects that push me a little bit, push me a lot actually. We're always looking for things that scare me. I love getting the call and thinking in my head, oh my goodness, how am I possibly going to pull this off? Or do I have the skills to do this? Do I have the time to do this? And then, of course, with my clients saying, of course I know how to do it. Yeah, it's going to be great, right? You gotta sell it until you win it, right? So.
Speaking of that, I see you're moving more into architecture, which is an area I have an interest in too. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. Our architectural projects tend to be relationships that we have either built through special events or a semi-permanent installation that happens in a space, and suddenly they see, wow, this kind of work is really interesting. So, it's been a learning experience for sure, because I'm not traditionally trained in architectural lighting. I'm coming at it with a theatrical sensibility, theatrical awareness in terms of the kinds of fixtures that we all use on projects. So I rely on my relationships at companies like Barbizon and owners reps who really have the knowledge of fixture types and things that can help me decide. But from a vision perspective, from an art and creative perspective, it's really enjoyable to take an aesthetic that you learn in dance or theater or opera and translate that into something permanent or a public space.
So what's next up for you? Any fun projects that we're going to see?
Absolutely. Got some really cool things coming up, actually. One, of course, as I mentioned, Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater's 60th anniversary New York season opens.
Where's that going to be? City Center?
City Center opens November 28th, runs for 5 weeks. As I said, 27 ballets and repertory. Definitely come out and see some of the work if you happen to be in the New York area. It's going to be a lot of really great things. Thinking forward to that, I've been working on a project for a few years now that I really am passionate about, called Pip's Island. And Pip's Island is a interactive, immersive children's theater experience. It is, as many people kind of say, it's Sleep No More for kids, right? So there's if you guys don't know, Sleep No More is a kind of choose your own adventure theatrical experience in New York. But this event is a mix of video, as if you're in a video game, yet there's puppetry and there's actors and there's music and soundscape and textures and light, all that are, cohesively coming to create this kind of 3D environment that the children have this experience and walk through. I've been working on it for a few years, and we have a flagship production of it opening in late February of 2019. So that's coming up.
Fantastic. Wow. That's cool.
Yeah, some additional galas and projects that are ongoing. I have a project in Copenhagen in Denmark for celebrating their 175th anniversary of the theme park there. So it's going to be a really exciting year. Actually, it's actually going to be a year about music. As things are lining up, I'm seeing a lot of concert style opera production, and trying to really move into more sort of non-traditional opera or hybrid dance meets opera kind of projects. It's stuff I'm really interested in. So it's going to be a really fun year.
Sounds like a creative life you lead. Sounds wonderful.
It
Sounds
really
like a
is.
dream.
It is. It is a dream, actually. And the biggest part of the dream, to be honest, is the people that I get to work with every day.
That's fantastic.
I am seriously surrounded by some of the most creative, talented, patient, and dedicated artists. My team at ARC3 and at Alvin Ailey. It allows me the ability to really not only do a lot of work, but do really, really strong work that we believe
Beautiful.
in. So.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, Al. I mean, just having that gig sounds like a blessing, and
Really?
and obviously very few people can do what you do. So congratulations, and congratulations on your Knight of Illumination Award. And I want to see the sword. Okay.
Oh, me too.
I don't believe it until I see this damn sword.
It's called a lance. It's a lance. I looked it
the
up.
lance. Thank you.
Oh no, he doesn't have a lance. He has a sword.
Oh, he has a sword?
Mine is
no,
a
he
sword,
said it
yeah.
was 5 feet long.
You don't watch Game of Thrones, do you, Stan?
No, I don't.
Okay, guys who joust use a lance, and it's to knock the other guy off the horse.
They would not
Right.
let us take the sword because there's in no way we would not only be able to put it in a cab, but definitely not through TSA. So
No. So the sword
Definitely
is going
not.
to be brought to you.
it'll. I believe the power of FedEx.
I also want to say, Al, really, this is very generous of you to take the time to put this down on tape for everybody who will really enjoy hearing what you've had to say. So
Especially our young listeners.
they don't know a lot of this history. They should know this history. We find they don't know a lot of history, and you are the keeper of the great history and also the future. So very, very generous of you to do this for us.
I am honored, and I will tell you that the sort of education and support of young people learning this craft, and it is a craft of lighting design, is incredibly important to me. That we're able to continue these traditions into the future after we're all gone. So
We're all gone, right?
that's great.
This will be there in posterity. David puts it on iTunes, so I don't know how long iTunes is going to last, but it's out there.
That's true. It's in the ether forever.
Right. They say everything you do on the internet is never going away.
Yeah.
So.
The thing about it is, though, even long after YouTube has gone away, once this is broadcast, it's going out into the outer space world. It's making its way into another galaxy right now. So probably episode 1 must be somewhere around Jupiter by now.
That's true.
No. This is what's going on. I made a deal with Elon Musk, and apparently I'm back on the SpaceX project.
You are, huh?
So I'm going to bring a tape of every single episode of Light Talk and launch it into space.
You might need a little help from ARC3 on the interior of the test that you're designing.
I'll hire Al's a team to do it.
Excellent.
So anyway,
Yeah.
hey, you hear that in the background, Al? Do you know what that is?
That's another episode of Light Talk.
That's right. That Hammond organ solo tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to us on Light Talk. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. You can find us on most any of your favorite podcast providers, including iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and a bunch of others. And be sure to subscribe to Light Talk. That way you won't miss 1 second of crazy Lumen insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast.
And remember that if you do get angry with us, the law firm of Phosphor, Tungsten, and Filament will keep us blameless until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to tune in next week when we discuss finding summer jobs in lighting, how to do a pre-show checklist, what do we think of the new MA3, and using unconventional light sources on stage.
All that and a new sponsor, Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
We'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk. Bye,
Bye-bye,
Al.
everybody. Bye, Al. Thank you, Al.
Light Talk.